Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Dungeon of Deadly Delights. I am your host, Rob Dilauro. Thank you so much for joining us for our inaugural episode. I can't tell you how excited we are to get started here on YouTube and talk about the latest and greatest in horror and entertainment. We've got a great team here. We're just going to introduce ourselves tonight. So let's just start off here. Horror icon, producer, director, writer. So amazing to have her as one of my teammates, Deborah Voorhees. Deborah, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and of course, joining in this venture. This is going to be a fantastic.
Thank you, Rob. I'm excited.
I am too. I can't tell you how much. So, and then we've got Tiffany. Tiffany works for Morbidly Beautiful. She writes for Pop Horror. Tiffany, thank you so much for being a part of this and letting me open this vault door after 5 years. This is going to be
exciting.
So guys, basically, we're just going to introduce ourselves tonight. I guess I'll start off. So I've been in the horror genre for almost 10 years, 10 years in 2020. I started off as a replacement journalist. And then I, basically just, went from a podcaster to a radio show host. I did that for about 2.5 years. And then I've done probably over 200 interviews in that time. And, it's just been quite a ride. It's been really quite a ride. It's, blood, sweat, and tears and all that stuff, as I'm sure you guys can attest to. If you believe in something, just do it. I always tell people that you got to follow your dreams, man. Whatever it is, just make it happen. I've done some incredible things in the past 10 years, and this is definitely another one of them for me. So when I did the Dungeon of Deadly Delights radio show back in, I started in 2011. We did that for 2.5 years. We had a guest every week, for that particular point in time. And, I haven't done this kind of medium before. This is actually the first time I'm doing a visual medium. So this is brand new for everybody, I think. But we just, like I said, we want to focus on the latest and greatest in horror and entertainment. We've got a great family attached to us with Corey Trahan and HorrorWeb. We're excited to work with them. And, this is, we're just cutting our teeth. This is the first show. This is exciting. So Deborah, I'm sure there's really no explanation that needs to be needed when it comes to you, but please let everybody know who you are.
Hi, I'm Deborah Voorhees. I'm excited to be here. I was really introduced to horror when I played the role of Tina in Friday the 13th, Part 5. That's when, yes, Garden Shear Studio. I've, been in 2 other horror films, so I've been killed 3 times. Once slit to the throat and stabbed to the chest. So, this is a great genre. Growing up, I watched things like Dark Shadows and, of course, the Addams Family, the Munsters, kind of thing. I've always loved horror comedy, has always been close to my heart, and I've always loved a really great thriller. So now I'm directing a film called 13 Fanboy, which is about an obsessed fan from Friday the 13th and Halloween stalking the women from the franchise. So I'm having a lot of fun with that.
And I bet it's a lot of work because I know every time I talk to you, it's like you're just off doing something, doing some sort of scouting or how's that going?
It's going incredibly well. It's incredibly busy right now. We're going to, our first shoot date will be July 12th. We right now 10, 11 days scheduled. That's just a small part of our shoot. But it's pretty intense.
Mm-hmm. Well, Tiffany, we talked a little bit on Facebook yesterday before, actually we were doing a Facebook Live, you guys, for the YouTube audience that doesn't know, and she kind of got murdered off because her phone died and it kind of fell over. So,
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. Tiffany, tell everybody who you are, please.
I'm Tiffany Blem. I am social media manager and a writer for Morbidly Beautiful. I also write for Pop Horror and Nightmares Conjuring. I and I just love horror. Everything I do is revolves around horror. My vacation, just my hobbies, everything. And I think the first Rob and I talked about this yesterday. The first movie that I remember watching that got me into horror was Poltergeist 2 when I was probably somewhere between like 7 and 9. I'm not really sure. It was around that time.
Yeah.
And I've been a horror fan ever since, and do what I can to support, especially indie horror, but doing what I can to support my friends who are in the horror business. And I'm excited to do this.
And who's your guest over there?
This is Chaplin, who loves to play fetch, and he will not stop. So, he doesn't care that I'm on camera. He's gonna keep doing it.
Well, Deborah's a fur mommy too, so that works out. I don't have any dogs.
Yeah. I'm sure he'll be making a regular appearance.
Awesome. Awesome. So, since we're talking about like where we, how we got into horror, like for me, I think it just really had to do with the fact that in a weird way, it's so strange to say it this way, but I feel like I've always had like a dark heart. I've always felt like I was connected to like monsters and things like that. Kind of like when I interviewed Guillermo del Toro years ago. He kind of treats it as a religion in a certain respect, and that's kind of how it was for me. And it's not necessarily that I didn't like light things. It was just like I even as a kid I realized that horror, like I obviously it got a bad rap for the longest time. It's starting to change a little bit now, but like I think the best stories stem from horror. I think they're so fantastical and imaginative, and then it also got into the aspect of special effects and the fact that people are able to do these kinds of things. So for me, it's not necessarily that I'm not like a gore hound or anything like that. It's not like I think I'm more into the ins and outs of film and how special effects are made. So when I see something like really gruesome or horrible, like I'll go, wow, how do they do that? And I think that's why I've created kinship, became friends with a lot of special effects makeup people, because I'm just so fascinated by the ins and outs of film. Like I think even when I was young, I knew what a grip was. I knew what a producer did. I've just always loved cinema, and horror is just like the tops for me. So yeah. So Deborah, what about you? You were saying a little bit before, like what got you into horror, but what was the main like connective tissue for you when it comes
Well, like I said, the main one was that really brought me into horror as somebody who was a personality in horror. That was being in Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
So, but I think one of my favorite films growing up was, or it is still my all-time favorite horror film, is The Bad Seed.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I just love that concept of that young child being that crazy killer. The stories that interest me the most in horror are the ones where the monster has some kind of real connection, that you can really connect with the monster somehow. Yeah. There's some humanity still there.
Well, the thing that really connected me to horror when I was a kid, I think I was 7. I was telling Tiffany this yesterday, but and I've been saying this ad nauseum to people because they ask me all the time. And obviously, the first thing that I saw was Michael Jackson's Thriller. That was the thing. And like when I saw that, like it terrified me because I was still like, I was a kid. I was scared of blood and all kinds of stuff, like which is crazy, because I am the person I am now. But that was just the thing for me. And then I saw like, the making of, and then I saw, what John Landis was doing behind the scenes. And then I was scared to death again when they played the video again, because it was on a loop when I was a kid. But I think the actual film that really hooked me, and it feels like I'm like connected to it in some way, because I was born in October of '78. And, like John Carpenter's like my favorite director of all time. Halloween has always been like my top film. I always just like felt connected to it. So the fact that I got to actually go to Austin for the Halloween premiere last year and interview Jamie Lee Curtis when we both, like me and the film, turned 40 years old, that was like amazing for me. So, but I've always been a massive Friday the 13th fan too, and a fan of yours. So
thank you.
So actually, Tiffany and I were talking about it yesterday, but we really didn't get a chance to get into it, but, like we're obviously going to be talking about the latest and greatest in horror and entertainment and all that. But I wanted to ask you guys, like, what is exciting you in terms of, you know, what's coming out and, you know, what's really grabbing your attention as far as something that you want to see?
I think that for me right now, what I'm really excited to see are so many horror films coming out and so many extremely well done horror films. You know, I can look to some of them in the very recent past that, like A Quiet Place.
Yeah.
You know, that's just, you know, you're right on the edge of your seat the whole time. It's probably one of the most frightening scenes ever. I don't know about you, Tiffany, but it certainly made me sit up and go, holy shit, what would happen if you were patient? Oh my gosh, trying to give birth without making any noise. It's pretty intense.
Well, what's really interesting for me, you talk about A Quiet Place and all these things, but it's amazing to me, not really amazing necessarily, but like the fact that a lot of these comedic actors are coming out of the woodwork and getting into horror. Like Chris Rock is like rebooting the Saw franchise.
Right.
You've got, you know, John Krasinski, you know, from The Office, like doing something like A Quiet Place, and of course Jordan Peele, who, like, you could tell if you watch Key and Peele, he was always a like deep horror fan. So it's not really shocking when it comes to him, but you know, the stories that he's coming out with are pretty like impressive because it's something that like really nobody's ever seen before. And you know, like obviously, like, you know, everything, you know, has a DNA, and you've seen it in some aspect, but he's like putting his own spin on it. And really making things like culturally prominent. Nobody will ever forget Get Out, ever. We'll constantly talk about that 10 years from now. You know what I mean? So that's really interesting that a lot of comedic actors are getting into our genre.
Yeah, that's a really, I really enjoyed that film. I haven't seen his other two yet, but his Get Out.
Yeah.
Enjoyed. Yeah, I'm going to be interested to see what he's done with the other films. And I'm excited about Chris Rock. I think sometimes people get into this idea. I have a horror group called Deborah Voorhees Share Horror on Facebook. If anybody wants to join, but there was a conversation where several horror fans were really upset about Chris Rock being in it and trying to get into horror and stuff. And it was just really kind of surprising to me because, you know, an actor is just that, an actor. They're meant to play many different parts, many different types of parts, many different roles. And so I don't really see him just as comedy. I see him as an actor who has happened to do some comedy. And I'm really excited to see what he does with the Saw series.
Well, before I get to Tiffany and ask her what she's, you know, really excited about, I wanted to say that, you know, in regards to what you're saying, I remember there was another thing that was going on where LeBron James actually wanted to produce Friday the 13th when it was going through all that heated court battle. And a lot of people were like, LeBron, he's a basketball player. What's he going to do? Look, if he's a horror fan, he's a horror fan. I can't tell you how many times, like, I've interviewed people and they're just kind of like embarrassed to be in the horror genre, which is really kind of like hurtful to me. It's like, oh, it's just a job, you know? Like somebody like you, for example, you interact with the fans. You're obviously a fan of the fans and you know, the content. And it's very rare to find that. So if somebody's a fan of this genre and they want to be a part of it, then I say go for it. I don't care who you are.
Absolutely.
And I think, you know, like at its core, to be a comedian, honestly, I think there has to be a darkness attached to it, I think. You know, especially if you're talking about, like, you know, things that happen in your life and stuff. And a lot of these comedians, like, you know, haven't had, you know, these perfect upbringings and whatnot. So why not? I who cares who it is? Tiffany, what are you excited about? Because I know we were talking about Pollyanna McIntosh's debut, Darling, her directorial debut. And I love The Woman. I remember when that came out, you know, I don't know, you probably remember too, but there was this whole thing, like people were throwing up, you know, during the premiere and whatnot. But I thought, like, you know, it was so culturally permanent when it came to like a feminist story. I think it was something we definitely needed. So, you know, seeing that, you know, kind of like offshoot from, you know, from that particular movie that Lucky did with, you know, like, I just think, like, what did you think of the movie when you saw it?
The Woman?
No, you saw Darling, right?
I did see Darling. We went to the Film Festival in April and saw it. It's very different than The Woman. And while I enjoyed the storyline, I thought that it kind of took away from the. I'm trying to think of the word I want to use. Like, they made it more over the top. Like,
Yeah.
hard to take too seriously. The woman was so serious and brutal and dark and gritty, where Darlin was kind of like, they took that, but they went over the top to kind of make it less gritty, and it's not as disturbing because you're kind of expecting them to go that route based on the characters and scenes that were in it. It has a very different feel. Even the woman character in it is completely different than it was in the beginning.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. So,
but for what I'm excited about, I'm also excited to see what Chris Rock can do with Saw. Just because he is known for comedy, that doesn't mean he can't get dark and disgusting and, scare people and make them uncomfortable. So I'm excited to see exactly what he can do. And like I was telling Rob yesterday, for all of the horror that's going to be in theaters and available to more of an audience, because the more horror we have available to other people, the more it's going to continue to grow and even more in theaters and more being seen by more people. I'm excited for the new It. I'm excited for Child's Play. I'm excited for Midnight.
Yeah, Tiffany, I agree with you. Do you feel like there's starting to be more of a general acceptance for horror?
I do. From the amount of people that I know from outside of the horror community watching more the theater more, I do.
Right. I think you're right. It just seems to me like there's been a bit of a renaissance in the horror genre right now.
Especially
I'm
on
really
television.
Excited to see.
Yes.
Especially on television. For sure. Yeah, I agree with that Renaissance, the whole Renaissance situation. I think that's been going on the small screen for quite a few years now. And I think it's starting to bleed into the outer fabric, like, your big screen productions and indie horror and all that stuff. The thing is, though, the reason why I'm so excited, for something like 13 Fanboy is, like, I'm all for the intellectual horror. I'm all for the make you think horror and stuff. But, we don't want to lose, as far as I'm concerned, you don't want to lose your feeling of, what you love from the past. Slasher films and things like that also need to survive as well. You know what I mean? And have, like, whatever political message, whatever, whatever social message you're going to have within. But, we never want that to be taken away. It's like rock and roll. It'll never die. So, like, it's great that you're doing something like 13 Fanboy to keep that going. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and 13 Fanboy is very different. We're not trying to do Friday the 13th. This is a thriller with horror kills and a mystery as well, because you don't know who the killer is until the very end. But I think the closest way I can describe it is like, think of Cape Fear with horror kills. That real heavy intensity is what we're shooting for, at least. That's part of the inspiration.
Well, we were talking about it before.
Actually, I would say more Cape Fear than anything else, because, that's that one of those films where you're just right on the edge of your seat the whole time. Now, in Fear, you know who the killer is, but it's definitely, a movie that really keep things really intense. It's the Friday the 13th. You tend to have one. It's not realistic. It's not coming up from the grave to kill people.
Sure.
And so it's kind of like watching, an old pirate movie, Saturday matinee kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You leave the theater and you probably have had some, you've jumped and you've gotten scared and stuff. But at the end of it, you're not afraid in the parking lot. At the end of this film, you might be, because the stalker's real.
Well, isn't it interesting that something that like originally came out and a lot of critics, you know, for whatever reason, like thought it was just complete garbage, is now a part of our American mythology. Like it really is. You
Oh
know,
yeah,
Jason
absolutely.
Voorhees is a part of our like of our fabric now.
Right.
You know, which is a phenomenal thing,
Yeah.
but also a very, very odd thing. I guess it just like kind of takes time and, you know, like, you know, connectivity and, you know,
Well, he's had fans throughout the decades. And the one thing that's kind of interesting that Jason Voorhees did for me is that I rarely have to pronounce my name more than once now. I used to several times. Now people know.
So Tiffany, like what are your feelings as far as like you know, like obviously, you know, like horror has this like, you know, this intellectual thing and everybody's, you know, trying to be, you know, as smart as they possibly can, but you know, like you're probably like me. I mean, Christ, you talked to Joe Bob Briggs yesterday. I mean, I like trash movies too. I like cheese. I like all that stuff. So, like, what's your feeling on that? Do you like, you know, like you've got Terrifier behind you, for example, and you know, like it's just like a fun slasher film. Like, are you just happy that that's still surviving along with all this, like philosophical, psychological, you know, like stuff that's coming out right now? I
do. The slasher and the cheesy gore fest are my favorites.
Yeah.
Well, I do like one that stimulates the mind and makes you think and all that. At the end of the day, if I've had a long day at work or you know I'm tired, I want to watch a cheesy slasher, good old regular horror film. I don't want to think. I don't want to. I mean, I love horror films. I don't want to read subtitles. I just want to watch some killer or something terrorize some teenagers usually, and you know, watch the blood spray. That's what I want to do at the end of the day, for the most part. But then I do, you know, like to watch ones that make you think. Kind of like Hereditary was one in the most recent that I think of that made people really think and talk.
Right.
So I do like those too, but yeah, I agree that those are becoming more and more mainstream than a regular song.
I got to tell you something. I personally love the new Pet Sematary. I love the ending. I'll die on that cross because I know a lot of people didn't, but you know, as much as I respect the original, that one was pretty tight. I like that one a lot.
You know, you can like a remake and still be, you know, loyal and true to the original.
Imagine that.
You know, I like remakes. I like them for what they are. As long, you know, if they're going to put a different spin on it, and they want to make a female character male, and they want to, you know, switch out a black actor for what, I'm all for it. Give me all the creativeness, and I don't care. That does not mean I'm any less loyal to the original.
Right.
It means
100%.
that I will go with an open mind, and I will take it for what it is, and if I like it, I like it. If not, well, I have the original to go back to.
So Deborah, what about you? Like, you know, I think I have a feeling that you're into that, you know, psychological stuff, and I am too, you know, or like, you know, having, you know, that's the thing too. Like a lot of people are saying like, you know, oh, these things are like so politically responsive and socially responsive now, but I think horror has always been that way. George Romero is the best example of that. You know what I mean? Like it's always been part of horror. Like if you look at the ins and outs of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Night of the Living Dead or whatever it is, there's always been a social conscious within that. You know what I mean? Because they're playing on what's going on in that particular time period. So for them to just, so for people to just say it's just happening now, it's just kind of strange. I mean, it's been happening since, you know, the dawn of time, technically, when it comes to our genre. I just think that's weird that, it, you know, we're finally, you know, just accepting that now or understanding that now. You know what I mean? Right. So what was your question? Oh, I'm sorry. So yeah, so like I was going to ask you the same thing. Like, you know, like are you still into like the cheesy movies and the you know, just watching a fun, like, you know, a slasher? I really like something, if it's going to be a scary movie, I want it to really scare me. And, you know, while the cheesy slashers can be fun, they don't scare me. Yeah. Yeah. So I like something that's a little bit more intense. Well, that's one problem I've had for the longest time. I can't find a movie that scares me.
I think that's the case for a lot of horror fans. I'm easily scared, so I'm good.
But when it comes to true crime and all that stuff, like I'm not into it. I can't watch it.
I'm not really into the true crime stuff. I don't get into glorifying a real life killer. Pretend killers where, that's just getting dressed up for Halloween and everybody going out and having a good time.
Right.
That doesn't bother me.
Right.
But
Jason is, because Jason.
The real thing is something totally different.
Yeah.
When you guys were talking about, a lot of the remakes, I actually tend to prefer the remakes to the original for the most part, usually.
Yeah.
Or I like them as well. I never go in and look at a remake of something, though, and think about the original. I go in and look at it as a brand new movie, something completely different, and see if I like it on its own terms.
Well, I think that's what a remake is technically. If you're not looking at the, the financial aspect, and it's just executives, trying to find, something to to revive it. It is, in essence, kind of like a campfire story. Everybody tells the story different. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's what I love about the remake. If you think of it in that regard, then it makes more sense, because nobody's going to tell the same campfire spook story the same. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I interviewed Joe Bob Briggs in December, and the fact that he told me he loved a lot of remakes, I was like, what? Because he's all about the classic stuff. But he was saying, I don't know if he said that in your interview, Tiffany, but he said he loved the remake for Last House on the Left. He loved I'm trying to think, Hills Have Eyes. He liked So there's basically there's a lot of stuff that he really loved when it comes to the remake aspect, which I was kind of blown away by.
Right.
All right. So we've got a few minutes left here. Let's just do this. We're gonna end this off with just what do you expect from this particular channel that we're doing, this show right now? For me, I mean, obviously I want it to be successful and all of that, but really, I get excited the fact that I'm working with you guys and I get to create a team again, and hopefully move on, for years and years to come, and make this a thing that people connect to and love to watch every week. So do you have any feelings on that? Tiffany, I'll start with you if you
What do I hope to get out of the show?
Yeah, this is our first, technically our inaugural episode, right? So think we're doing this, God forbid we're doing this 10 years down the road, right? Here's the first episode. This is our pilot. So what do you want to get out of this, experience?
I would love to open people up to more indie horror, more obscure, people who maybe don't normally watch horror to start watching more. And I really just like sitting around talking to horror fans about horror.
Yeah.
That's really what I like.
Deborah, you've been in the game longer than all of us, so what are your feelings on it?
I think I just would like it to be a nice, well-organized platform where we can each bring in certain aspects, as opposed to, just kind of chit-chatting. I'd like to have some very specific things, like if Tiffany is really interested in indie horror and stuff, to have maybe a specific film that she talks about.
Oh,
and then,
absolutely.
Have for specific topics and things. And, I hope it'll be something that people will come to and come to rely on to say, hey, do I want to go see that movie or not? Of course, with horror fans, we want to go see them all. So even if they're crap.
Well, listen, you know what? This is it. This is our first show. So I guess we'll end it on that note. Just to let you guys know, we're actually going to air these shows every Sunday. So, that'll be actually on the HorrorWeb YouTube channel. And of course, we'll promote it in other, factions of social media. We'll have our Twitter, Instagram, Patreon, all that stuff set up, in the future. But for right now, I just want to thank you guys. Thank you for joining us, and hope you join us each week, where we talk about the latest and greatest in horror. We'll talk about things going on in the industry, pop culture. This is really exciting for me. The dungeon doors are open to everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, Deborah. Thank you for joining us tonight, Tiffany. Thank you for being a part of this. I couldn't ask for a greater team, guys. And so that's it. Good night, and we'll scare you later.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you, Tiffany. It's really nice to meet you.
You too, Deborah.
Tune in next week for the Dungeon of Deadly Delights. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Take care. Bye.